There are links between ISIS and this terrorist attack in San Bernardino, but there were no red flags. So how do you stop this from happening again?
Well, I think there are red flags, and a lot of people knew what was going on in that house or that apartment, and people were not wanting to call because they thought it would be inappropriate to call.
Inappropriate why?
Well, they were saying that it was, that they would have been profiling. And a person said, we sort of knew what was going on, but we don't want to profile. Can you believe this?
Should there be profiling?
Well, I think there can be profiling. I mean,
how would that work?
if they thought there was something wrong with that group and they saw what was happening and they didn't want to call the police because they didn't want to be profiling, I think that's pretty bad. People are dead. A lot of people are dead right now. So everybody wants to be politically correct, and that's part of the problem that we have with our country.
Have people been too politically correct with Muslims in America?
I think so, and with maybe other things too, but I think certainly so. And as you know, I came out with, I want vigilance, I want real vigilance, and whether it's mosques or whatever it has to be. But a lot of bad things are happening.
Whatever it has to be, does that include, I know you, where are you on the question of tracking Muslims in America?
Well, look, we are having a problem with the radicals in the Muslim group. Let's not kid ourselves. And you can say it or you don't have to say it, and maybe you won't even want to, but I've been saying it loud and strong. So if you have people coming out of mosques with hatred and with death in their eyes and on their minds, we're going to have to do something, John. We can't just say we're not going to look at it. Now, I made that statement a number of weeks ago. It took a lot of whatever. A lot of people were not exactly thrilled with it. And now everybody seems to agree with me.
But this idea of tracking Muslims in America, that's the thing. Where are you on that?
You have people that have to be tracked. If they're Muslims, they're Muslims. But you have people that have to be tracked. And we better be, I use the word vigilance. We have to show vigilance. We have to have it. And if we don't, we're foolish people. You know, we're being led by people that don't know what's happening. When you have President Obama talking about global warming is our biggest problem, we have a president that is just not with it at all.
There are 3 million Muslims in America.
Right.
What should they feel about their place in American life now?
Look, we are having a tremendous problem with radical Islamic terrorism. I mean, well, you can say it or you don't have to say it. And we have a president that won't issue the term. He won't talk about it. So we're having this tremendous radical Islamic terrorism. Okay? A lot of people don't want to even say it. Not a lot of people. We have one person that I really know of, and it's called President Obama. Until he admits that this is a problem, we're never going to solve the problem. But he's only going to be there, fortunately, a little bit more than a year, because the problem will get solved when he gets the hell out.
You mentioned political correctness about Muslims. What the criticism of you is that you are playing on fears that people have.
No,
and
I'm
you're
playing
stoking.
on common sense. No, I'm not playing on fears. I don't want to play on fears. I understand the whole world, and I understand. And I have Muslim friends who are great people. And by the way, they tell me there's a big problem. I'm not playing on fears. I'm playing on common sense. We have a problem. The World Trade Center came down. And by the way, speaking of coming down, they put their families on airplanes a couple of days before, sent them back to Saudi Arabia for the most part. Those wives knew exactly what was going to happen. And those wives went home to watch their husbands knock down the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and wherever the third plane was going, except we had some very, very brave passengers wherever that third plane was going. Those wives knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah, you mentioned the families, going after the families. What does that mean? How
Well,
would
I would
that work?
go after, well, at least I would certainly go after the wives who absolutely knew what was happening. And I guess your definition of what I do, I'm going to leave that to your imagination. But I will tell you, I would be very tough on families because the families know what's happening. Even in this last instance, I see everybody knew. So many people knew. They thought that this man and this woman, you know, whether he was radicalized or how he became, they thought something was going on. Why don't these people report it to the police? Why wouldn't they report it to the police? Now, they said it was profiling. They didn't want to profile. Can you believe this? They didn't want to profile, even though they thought something very bad was going on.
His sister said she didn't know what was going on. She was crestfallen for the victims here.
I probably don't believe the sister.
You don't believe the sister. So you'd go after her?
I would go after a lot of people, and I'd find out whether or not they knew. I'd be able to find out. Because I don't believe the sister.
And do you worry about creating more terrorists?
No, we have to stop terrorists. And the only way you're going to stop them, in my opinion, is that way. You know, they say they don't mind dying. I think they do mind dying. But I can tell you this, they want their families left alone. We have to stop terrorism.
You don't think there's a worry, a tension if you go too far that you end up creating more terrorists?
What's too far? What's too far? They're killing people. Whether it's what we just saw in California or in Paris, they're killing people, innocent people, people without guns. You look at Paris, no guns, nothing. And you look at California, no guns. I can tell you one thing, if I'm in there and if I had a gun, we're going down shooting. We're going to knock them out, okay, one way or the other. And if a couple of guns are in that room, you talk about Second Amendment, which I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. In Paris, they had no guns. In California, they had no guns. Only the bad guys had the guns. So they were like sitting ducks, every one of them.
Should the good guys get guns?
The good guys.
Should people carry?
If they want to, they should be able to, because it's going to be a lot safer. Look at what's going on. We're going into these gun-free areas. How about the school a few months ago? Gun-free school, gun-free area. And you look at what happened, it was a disgrace. If people had guns, how about the soldiers that were killed? 6 soldiers killed, champion marksmen on a military base. They're not allowed to carry their guns. And a whack job walks in and kills them. Not right. So I am a believer in the Second Amendment. And you know, the bottom line is the bad guys are always going to have the guns. We better do something about it. Paris is one of the toughest cities in the world for guns, right? You can't get them. And you had carnage.
Why do you think people join ISIS in the United States?
Well, I think for one reason, they're using the internet a lot better than we do. And they're brainwashing these kids. I mean, the word is brainwashing. They are brainwashing young, impressionable people, largely young. Probably they're doing it with older people also.
How do you fight that?
You fight it with intelligence. You fight it by beating them at their own game. You fight it by not saying mastermind like you did, like other people did. I see the word mastermind, the mastermind. I called him the guy with the dirty hat, the guy with the dirty, filthy hat. They called him a mastermind. And these kids are watching the mastermind. They say, oh, I want to be a mastermind. The press is really hurting it. I will say that. I was very strong on that last week and 2 weeks ago with the Paris knockout. And I think the press is making it, they're glamorizing these people. These people are animals. These people are not masterminds. They're not even smart people. I bet you they have very low IQs. I mean, they're not smart people. And the press is making them into something. They're making them into Robin Hood. And young people and other people are following. We have to stop their internet work. They're doing better we came up with the internet, but they're using it better than we do.
In terms of stopping them, at the moment, if you're on the no-fly list, you can buy a firearm. Does that need to be fixed?
Well, I'd certainly take a look at it. I would. I'm very strong into the whole thing with Second Amendment. But if you can't fly, and if you've got some really bad, I would certainly look at that very hard.
Would you also look into the shooters in this case amassed a great amount of ammunition?
Right.
They had multiple weapons. Should that, in this new world, bring people under suspicion if they're developing that kind of a
certainly
cache?
People could look at it. They should. When the people next door and when other people are saying there's something strange going on there, that's not people going hunting for deer. Okay, what was happening in there? Because they had bombs, they had all sorts of pipe bombs, they had a lot of things. And certainly you can take a look at what's going on. Again, the word vigilance. We have to be looking at a lot of different things, but we can't do anything to hurt the Second Amendment. People need their weapons to protect themselves. And you see that now more than ever before.
I want to ask you a question, one more about your national security thinking, because
Right.
your critics would say, you know, you've said you'll bomb the bleep out of ISIS.
I would bomb the hell out of ISIS, that's true.
You will go after the families hard. It's strong. The criticism is that you don't have the temperament, that this goes over into recklessness in your foreign policy. What's your response to that?
Well, I think I have a great temperament. I built a tremendous company. I built a company that's worth many, many, many billions of dollars. I did it in a relatively short period of time. I have the greatest assets, some of the greatest real estate assets in the world, some of the greatest assets in the world. You don't do that unless you have the right temperament. I have a great temperament. I get along with Democrats. I get along with Republicans. In fact, you know, I'll go the other side. Many of the critics said, oh, he gets along with the Democrats and he gets along with liberals. And That's true. And I get along with conservatives. I get along with Republicans. I get along with everybody. Well, got a couple of little enemies, but I get along with a lot of people. But just so you understand, to do what I've done, you need great temperament. And Bush, I know, said his tone is very tough. They're chopping off heads of Christians all over, and other people, okay? They're chopping people's heads off. We need somebody with a strong temperament. I'm also the guy with my temperament said, don't go into Iraq. You will destabilize the Middle East, right? I'm also the guy that said, get bin Laden before he knocked down the World Trade Center, in a book that was published 2 years before the World Trade Center. So my temperament is very good.
The Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee put out a memo, called you a guided missile.
No, excuse me, such a dishonest question. They said you should learn from Trump. You should study Trump. Why do you ask a question like that? You should study Trump. You should study his mannerisms. You should study his clothing and the way he dresses, the way he talks. That's what they said. They also said he's got some other things that maybe you don't have. Yeah, but you're very dishonest.
It was a two-part question.
Excuse me. Well, I don't think you were going to answer. Ask me the other
Look,
part.
it's right there.
Okay, good.
They say that you are, that this is from the memo, misguided missile. They're not celebrating that you might be the nominee, and they're trying to tell their candidates what to do.
Well, they are actually saying that I will be the nominee. But they're saying study Trump because he's doing things that nobody's ever done before, and it really works. Now, they say you can leave some of the insults out, but you should learn from Trump, the way he uses the internet, the way he uses social media, the way he dresses, not that it's a big deal, but the way, I guess they like my ties.
And that you're tapping into something in the country.
Yeah,
They say all of that.
That's really what they've said. I mean, that was 90%. In fact, if you look at the front page of the Washington Post, where they had this story, because that was who it was leaked to by somebody, it was a very nice headline. They want to study me. So I was complimented. You know what? These are people that have been in politics all their lives. I'm here for 5 months, and they're studying me.
A couple of further
I just wanted to keep you honest. Okay.
That's good. We'll try and do the same with you.
I know.
Let's go, speaking of keeping you honest, Serge Kovaleski. Okay. So the reporter from the New York Times, you said you weren't mimicking him. But
I wasn't.
Then you did a spot-on imitation of the specific characteristic he has. How is that possible that that's not mimicking him?
He wrote an article right after September 11th. That paragraph was practically spot on. He tried to take away the paragraph. He said I knew him in 1985.
This is about the celebrating.
Right, that was about celebrating, which has turned out to be right. So many people have now come forward. Now they have tape. Now you can question how many people and all that, but now they have tape. Okay, I've been very much vindicated. In fact, Breitbart wrote a big article, Trump 100% vindicated. Okay, but he tried to take his paragraph out and tried to make it a much different paragraph than what he wrote 14 years ago, right? So what I did is I was very angry about it because I thought it was very dishonest. That was before I got all of the other paragraphs and other things written by other people. So what happened with him is he said, well, I guess what happened really is he tried to take it out. I then mimicked him and talked about the way he was pandering and this and that. Not knowing him, I was talking about generalization of a reporter that tried, because I read a story that the reporter, now,
But
I don't remember him, excuse me, just so you understand. He said, I met him 35 years ago. Do you know how many reporters are covering me now? Hundreds. There are hundreds of people out there right now. Do you know that most of those people, I have no idea, and they're covering me all over the place? I met him 35 years ago. I knew what, excuse me, I met him. What I was doing is showing the emotion of a person trying to take away. I had no idea that he had disability. And I would never mock a person with disability. I would never do it. I would never do it. I don't know who he is. Now, he says I do, and he said I met him 35 years ago, and I don't disagree with that. I probably did. But I don't remember him, and I didn't know he had a disability.
But the mimicking you did was so spot on.
You know what they did? They took the way I was, and I do that about a lot of people. I did that about Ben Carson with the belt when he said that he was going to get hit with the belt.
Well, that's the thing.
Excuse me. If you look at what I did with Ben Carson, you could apply that also to Serge Kovaleski, okay? I don't know Serge Kovaleski. He probably interviewed me. Do you know how many interviews I've done? And I'm very proud of my memory. I have one of the great memories of all time. But you know what? 35 years ago, a reporter, and then he said he had a disability. I have no idea who he is.
Quickly, women in the military.
Right.
You said in 2013, you said 26,000 unreported sexual assaults in the military, only 238 convictions. What did these geniuses expect when they put men and women together? Now the Pentagon has opened up all combat to women. What do you think?
Well, it's a very tricky subject. I watched a competitor of yours, Fox, today, and it was on Fox where they have a young woman who was a flyer. And she had real problems where they're opening it up because she said women are having a hard time competing physically, strength-wise. They're having a hard time competing with men, and even socially. You know, I mean, you're in there and you're fighting and you're sitting next to a woman. I mean, now, they want to be politically correct, they want to do it. But there are major problems. And as you know, there are many people that think this shouldn't be done at a high level, at a level of general. I think that it's a very tricky situation. But on Fox today, they had a woman who was a pilot, top level, very good, really indicating that this is really something that is not going to work out. Will it work out? I hope so. I can say this, the numbers of rapes in the military are through the roof, through the roof.
Next week, your medical records. You say perfection. How at age 70 you don't exercise?
Well, I'm not 70. Well, I exercise. I play sports. I'm a very good athlete. I've always been a good athlete. I've won many club championships in golf. I was a great baseball player. I mean, I was always a great athlete. But, you know, I exercise by being here. You know, I mean, when I do this is, tell you what, when I stand up and make a speech, without reading a speech, without reading teleprompters, and I have, as you see tonight, you know, thousands and thousands of people in a room, and the rooms are always very hot. You know why they're hot? Because the rooms weren't designed to have 10,000 people in. They were designed to have boats and 500 people. They're like convention centers. I get a lot of exercise, but I will be releasing a report which I think I hope you're going to be very impressed with, probably Monday or Tuesday of next week.
We'll look forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Thank you very much.